On the 26th of September 1980, a report that's aim, as stated by the authors, was to institute a study into all freight and passenger transport within Victoria and to and from Victoria was released to the public. The Victorian Transport Plan, better known as the Lonnie Report, recommended that several tram routes, trains to Port Melbourne, St Kilda, Sandringham, Williamstown, Altona, Alamein, Upfield and Eltham to Hurstbridge be closed to passengers. For the rest of the state, all regional services, except for those to Geelong, were to be replaced by buses, meaning that Victoria's rail network would end up looking like this. At this time, aged rolling stock, infrequent services, and competition from other forms of transport had seen the Victorian Railways passenger numbers drop significantly. The Lonnie Report addressed this issue, but didn't attempt to fix it, instead investing its interests into the car. However, the general public saw a need to retain an extensive and practical rail network. To meet this popular opinion, in 1981, the government devised the New Deal for country passengers. This project saw the regional rail network brought up to a more modern standard by acquiring new rolling stock and making the network more efficient and easier to use. Part of this project was the rebuilding of the Victorian Railways B-Class into A-Class locomotives for use on passenger services. 10 new locomotives known as N-Class were also to be built as part of the project. In 1985, the A-Class conversion project was scrapped due to rising costs after 11 locomotives had been converted. To compensate this, 15 more N-Classes were constructed using parts originally meant for the A-Class conversions. All of the new N-Class locomotives were built by Clyde Engineering in Somerton. These new locomotives were fitted with brand new EMD D43 traction motors capable of speeds up to 115 km per hour. These have since been replaced with new traction motors capable of 130 km per hour. They are double-ended hood locomotives, meaning that they have cabs at each end and the locomotive is less than full width for most of its length, with walkways on each side. This shape earned them the nickname of dog bones. The N-Class use head-end power, with a 240 kilowatt generator located in the locomotive, which provides electricity for air conditioning, lighting and other services to the carriages. The locos were built to broad gauge, with 3 being converted to standard gauge in 2011 for use on Albury line services. With their 6,800 litre fuel tanks, the class can travel from Melbourne to Adelaide without refuelling. Each loco is named after a city in Victoria, except for N453, which is named after the border town of Albury. N465 features an earlier spelling of Ballarat, spelled B-A-L-L-A-R-A-T, now only spelt with one A. The class were originally painted in the V-Line tangerine, orange and grey livery, with logos featured on the side and front of the trains. When introduced, the locos ran on V-Line services all across the state, as well as the broad gauge overland to Adelaide. Nothing much changed until 1995, when V-Line freight and passenger operations were split. The N-Class were allocated to passenger services, but before this time, they had also been used on freight trains with a maximum speed of 90 km per hour. V-Line freight trains retained the original orange-grey livery, however, the word freight was added to the logos on the side. The N-Class and other V-Line trains were painted with a new livery. The Mark I livery featured a blue, red and white colour scheme with new logos on the front and sides of the train. After privatisation in 1999, the trains were painted with the Mark II livery, which only differed with a slight variation in the logo, using less bold letters and featuring a line underneath the text. Between 2000 and 2009, the regional fast rail project was completed, delivering upgraded track and new velocity diesel multiple unit trains permitted to run at 160 km per hour. These trains started running in late 2005, replacing many loco-hauled services pulled by the N-Class on commuter lines to Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo and Traralgon. In 2008, N-Class began to be repainted in the new Mark III livery, more commonly known as the hamburger livery, with red, white and yellow colours. 2017 saw the rollout of the PTV livery in purple and yellow, matching the Velocity trains and other public transport across the state. With Velocity trains continuing to be built and used across the network, the N-Class are now the only locomotive-hauled trains left in V-Line's fleet. At present, they are used for long-distance services to Bairnsdale, Warrnambool, Swan Hill, Shepparton and Albury, as well as some commuter services. In October 2017, work on the Regional Rail Revival project commenced. Part of this project is the upgrading of long-distance lines to allow for the running of new long-haul velocity trains. In 2018, the Bairnsdale line was the first to receive velocity trains, with 2 of the 3 existing N-Class services being replaced. Upgrades are currently being made to allow for new long-haul velocities on the Warrnambool, Shepparton and Albury lines, with standard gauge velocity units currently undertaking testing on the North East line. There are no current plans to replace the N-Class on the Swan Hill line, although this will probably happen within the decade. With many N-Class services being replaced by velocity trains, the dog bones will soon become a less common sight on the V-Line network and will eventually all be retired from passenger services. So what will happen to the class when V-Line retires them? Well, the N-Class will most likely be sold off to be used on freight services like other V-Line locomotives have been in the past, and there is always a chance that tourist railways might purchase them too. Built in the 1980s to help revive a struggling network, the N-Class are in their final years of passenger service, now being replaced by their modern equivalent. Since their beginnings over 35 years ago, these workhorses have played a vital role in moving Victoria, so while you can, go and catch an N-Class.